Until very recently, Guyana, which was considered the poorest country in the entire Americas, is now regarded as one of the fastest growing wealthy nations in the world. In this video, we'll examine Guyana, a South American country, and try to understand how it became wealthy.
Guyana is located in northeastern South America, bordering Suriname, Brazil, and Venezuela. It also has a coastline along the Atlantic Ocean. It is a quarter the size of Turkey and is the third smallest country in South America after Uruguay and Suriname. The capital city is Georgetown. With a population of 813,000, it is the second least populated country in South America after neighboring Suriname. Additionally, when we compare its population to its land area, we see that it is one of the least densely populated countries in the world. The majority of the population is concentrated in the coastal areas, because a large part of its land consists of the Amazon rainforest, swamps, and mountainous terrains. For example, 1 in 4 people lives in the capital, Georgetown. Additionally, according to varying sources, between 500,000 and 700,000 Guyanese people also live abroad. These people have migrated to various countries, primarily the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom. The official language is English, and it is the only country in South America where English is the official language. In this nation of 813,000, English and 10 local languages have official status. The majority of the population speaks Guyanese Creole, an English-based Creole language. Creole languages develop from a blend of multiple languages, varying by region and individual. It mostly emerged as a result of colonial countries like England, Spain, France, and Portugal imposing their languages on the countries they colonized. The name Guyana means land of many waters or very watery lands in the local Arawak language, and it refers not only to the country but also to the region encompassing Suriname, French Guyana, and the eastern part of Venezuela. Before the age of geographical discoveries, semi-nomadic Native American tribes called Arawak and Carib lived in the region. The lands discovered by Columbus in 1498 were systematically colonized by the Dutch in the 1620s. Enslaved people were brought from Africa to work on sugar plantations. Later, the region changed hands between France, the Netherlands, and England, and in 1831, it became a colony of England. The abolition of slavery by England in 1833 led to a labor shortage on sugar plantations. The English resolved this issue by bringing indentured laborers from India. Most of the workers chose to stay in Guyana after their contracts expired. The reason was the opportunities to own land and their unwillingness to return to the caste system in India. Today, 39.8% of Guyana's population is of Indian origin, 29.2% is of African origin, and 19.9% is of mixed heritage. The proportion of people of mixed heritage is steadily increasing. In terms of religion, 54.2% of the population adheres to Christianity, 31% to Hinduism, and 7.5% to Islam. Guyana became a fully independent state within the British Commonwealth on May 26, 1966. In 1970, they declared a republic. A president was appointed instead of the Queen of England. Initially, they adopted a socialist-based cooperative republic model to ensure economic equality and ethnic unity. However, in the 1980s, under Western pressure, socialist policies were abandoned, but the country's official name remained the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. It is the only country in South America that is a member of the Commonwealth of Nations. Although located on the mainland of South America, the country's residents see themselves as closer to Caribbean culture rather than Latin American culture and identify as being part of the Caribbean. When people think of the Caribbean, turquoise seas come to mind, but despite being located by the sea, Guyana is a country deprived of sea tourism. The reason for this is the Demerara River. This massive river, which originates in the Amazon forest in the interior of the country, carries all the Amazon's mud to the country's coastal areas. Due to this mud, the murky and muddy shores are not suitable for swimming. The most prominent and internationally recognized place in the country is the Quito waterfall. This waterfall, with a depth of approximately 246 yards, is considered the world's tallest single-drop waterfall. One of Guyana's biggest international issues today is the long-standing territorial dispute with its neighbor Venezuela. The Essequibo region is an area that covers approximately 60% of Guyana's total land area and is rich in natural resources such as gold and oil. Venezuela has been claiming rights over this region for a very long time. In fact, in 2023, according to international analysts, a referendum with allegedly fraudulent results asked the public about the idea of annexing this region to their territory, and 95% of the public supported the idea. Guyana has been regarded as the world's fastest-growing wealthy country over the last 4 years, thanks to oil. When we look at where Guyana is located, it's actually not surprising that it has oil reserves, because its neighbor, Venezuela, is the country with the largest oil reserves in the world. In Guyana, various efforts have been made to extract oil since the 1930s, but these were weak attempts. So what changed afterward? Since gaining their independence in 1966, they have struggled with economic difficulties and political instability. Since the investment environment was unreliable, international oil companies were hesitant to show interest in the country. The shifting policies between governments also made it difficult to plan long-term energy projects. The region's oil reserves are not on land but beneath the sea. This increases the cost of extracting the oil. Guyana was also experiencing territorial disputes with Venezuela while facing a maritime boundary disagreement with its other neighbor, Suriname. After the 1990s, when it was confirmed that there were oil reserves in this region, tensions escalated further. In 2000, an oil exploration vessel invited by the Guyanese government was forcibly removed from the disputed waters by Suriname's security forces. This incident created diplomatic and military tension between the two countries. The issue was resolved in 2007 by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea Tribunal.
Now you might be thinking this: if oil companies know there are reserves there, they won't care about disputes. These are already small countries. They come, extract the oil, and go about their business. After all, Nigeria, one of the world's largest oil-producing countries today, is a nation dominated by chaos, with pirates roaming its coasts. Oil companies somehow manage to operate in this environment. We don't often hear that chaos and pirates disrupt their operations. In Guyana, the reason for the delayed extraction of oil was entirely economic.
This graph shows the price per barrel of oil over the last 60 years, according to the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries tariff. Until 1973, oil prices rose slightly to $2.7, but in 1974 they suddenly skyrocketed to $11. The reason for this is the Yom Kippur War that occurred in 1973 between Israel and the Arab countries. With the war, Arab oil-producing countries began imposing an embargo on Western countries supporting Israel, primarily the United States. Most experts claim that oil-producing countries, seizing the opportunity of the war, actually imposed the embargo to increase prices. After the war, with peace negotiations and the establishment of peace, the embargo was lifted, but as a consequence, oil prices rose to unprecedented levels. We see that the next surge occurred in the early 2000s. The destabilization of the Middle East, the main source of oil due to wars, the rising energy demand in China and India, the damage to oil wells caused by Hurricane Katrina in the United States in 2005, and the 2008 global financial crisis all led to oil prices reaching approximately $110 per barrel. Since 1972, prices have increased by around 100 times over 40 years. Although there were fluctuations afterward, this is where Guyana's fate changes as well. The rising cost of oil is pushing countries and companies to discover new reserves. On top of that, advancements in technology have made offshore drilling techniques cheaper, encouraging more exploration in marine areas. Significant discoveries in Guyana began for the first time in 2008. In 2015, the first reserve was discovered approximately 124 miles offshore. In 2019, oil was commercially extracted and sold for the first time. For this reason, Guyana is the newest oil-producing country in the world. They have the world's 18th largest oil reserves, and their reserves are greater than Norway's. However, compared to the countries above them on this list, it is the country with the lowest population at 813,000. For instance, among small oil-producing nations, Qatar's population is 2.7 million, while Kuwait's is 4.3 million. For this reason, in terms of population ratio, that is oil production per capita, they rank third in the world.
Studying their first oil exports in 2019, they suddenly became the fastest growing country in the world.
While all world economies were shaken by the pandemic, they grew by 43.48% in 2020, 20.6% in 2021, 57.8% in 2022, and 33% in 2023. These are the highest rates in the world. Once struggling desperately with poverty and considered the poorest country in South America, where economies were already not very strong, Guyana suddenly started receiving a flood of money. With this money, they are rapidly undertaking infrastructure projects and public investments. Of course, they are not neglecting their citizens either. They gave all citizens, including those abroad, a cash grant of $478 per person, which is 100,000 Guyanese dollars. However, there are two major handicaps for Guyana. The first is the Dutch disease, an economic term. It refers to a natural resource in a country dominating its economy, with the entire economy revolving around the money generated from that resource. In any extraordinary situation or disruption, these economies suffer significant damages. For example, during the 1973 oil crisis, when Arab countries imposed an embargo on Western countries, primarily the United States, Western nations began sourcing oil from Venezuela. The Venezuelan economy suddenly grew, but the entire economy was based on oil. When the embargo ended, the Venezuelan economy also collapsed, and they carried their problems to this day as one of the most troubled economies in the world. To avoid falling into this situation, Arab countries are now creating funds and acquiring significant shares in global companies or directly partnering with them. They are purchasing the world's most valuable real estate. Norway is doing the same. In fact, Norway is a pioneer in establishing a state fund to convert money from natural resources into investments. If the flow of money to Guyana due to oil suddenly stops, the country could suffer from the Dutch disease. It could face the same fate as its neighbor Venezuela. The second major handicap is that they have arrived at the end of the oil era. Under the 2015 Paris Agreement, countries pledged to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2050. This means trying to reduce oil usage. Of course, while many still doubt that oil usage will decrease, it is very likely that the money Guyana earns from this natural resource will diminish over time. Government officials already acknowledge in their statements that time is a handicap for them and that it is very likely oil consumption will decrease over the years.